Time once again for a breaking news edition of the BamaOnLine podcast. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside site publisher Tim Watts. And Tim, here we go again. The surge of commitments for the Alabama Crimson Tide, where the class of 2024 is concerned, continued on today as the Crimson Tide picks up a nice commitment from a four-star wide receiver from the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, Amari Jefferson, he's a guy Alabama's targeted early, have been on him pretty hot and heavy. He's a Tennessee baseball commitment, right? Didn't really hear from the Tennessee baseball staff as much. I think the football staff kind of got a little bit of a late start. Alabama went full throttle there and, just made up a lot of ground. And, the one thing that stands out to me is dude's got talent. He's a big body guy. He's got speed. He's got hands. He's got all the little things you look for. He has several plays on his highlight tape where he's simply thrown the ball on the sideline. And I'm telling you, it looks impossible he's going to get out of there. And next thing you know, he boot scoot boogies and he's gone, down the sideline. So he's got speed. He's got that build. He's a thick kid. So we're not talking about someone that, is going to be shy going across the middle. But really good job by the Alabama staff here. And again, committed to Tennessee for baseball. And, the one thing about it, like if people wonder how good he is, I think Josh Heupel, as much as any college coach in football, probably values the wide receivers, right? And he went to the end fighting for him, obviously an in-state guy, but obviously Bama and Tennessee is who it came down to, and a big win for Alabama.
Some good work from Joe Cox and Holman Wiggins here of late, it seems like, because I believe Joe Cox was the primary on Jamie French, the 2025 wide receiver who recently committed to Alabama. It looks like it was that duo again, I'm guessing, based on the database here anyway. And yeah, I've watched the tape of Jefferson myself, and absolutely very natural receiver. You see him get over the top from an outside spot, not just on standard deep ball routes either. He's also got some devastating double moves on tape with a stutter and go standing out among those. He lines up inside sometimes, Tim. He turns some quick game opportunities into explosive plays. And I like that Baylor, his high school there in Chattanooga, they'll hand it to him too on reverses, jet action. And he's a one cut and go kind of guy. And I think that goes back to the physical attributes you talked about. He's a thick cut kind of receiver, very decisive, not a lot of wasted motion. And then he has a gear when he gets into the open field. I'm going to make a comp here, Tim. You tell me what you think. I'm going to go a bigger Randall Cobb, at least when Randall Cobb was coming out of high school, a guy that could kind of do everything at Kentucky during his time in Lexington.
Absolutely. Randall Cobb's not bad. I hadn't even thought of him, but he was that thicker guy. He had a really good NFL career. I know it seems to have came and went really fast, but yeah, again, we've seen people on the board compare him to Deebo Samuel. It's kind of hard to go with Deebo when we're also comparing Kendrick Law to Deebo. You know what I mean? But we got Deebo on the mind. But he's a talented guy. He's thick, like you said. He's fast. He's got all those traits that we're talking about of a Cobb or of a Kendrick Law, that kind of thick build guy that almost looks like a running back. Again, like you said, a one cut guy. To me, I call it plant and go. He plants a foot and he's gone. There's not a whole lot of dancing around. There's not a lot of wiggle. He is going to plant it. He's going to go. But obviously a big win for multiple reasons. First of all, they lost Perry Thompson last week when he flipped to Auburn. But Amari was a guy they were taking anyways. Obviously, they would have loved to have Perry, Rico Scott, who's also committed, and Amari Jefferson. But that didn't work out. But the fact you lost one of your wide receivers in a class where it wasn't really a priority, but you still want to bring in some quality. So Landon Jefferson's huge from several aspects.
It's interesting from the baseball perspective with this, because this is 2 years in a row, right? Bray Hubbard a year ago was a baseball commitment prior to camping at Alabama a summer ago. Next thing you know, he's switching to the football opportunity he had at Alabama. These two sport guys, typically it seems like we're talking about maybe football, track, football, maybe basketball. And hey, look, I'm guessing guys like Hubbard and Jefferson, if you put them on a track, they can get it done. You put them on a basketball court, they can probably get it done too. But just multi-sport athletes once again for Alabama at the defensive back and now the wide receiver positions.
And let me tell you something else. Being committed in baseball, that's one thing. But being committed to Tennessee, that's a big deal. That's one of the premier baseball programs in the country. We're seeing it in the draft. We're seeing it in the results that they put on the field. I mean, that's a very selective program. So it's not just he was playing baseball. He was playing baseball at a very high level. And again, like you said, I mean, he does a lot of the little things for his team. Obviously, it's high school, and he's definitely the big fish in pretty much every game he plays. But again, I think that's going to translate his skill set, his build. I think that's going to translate anywhere in the country on the high school level. And it's not, I think his curve physically is going to be a little less steep than it would for other guys, where they're going to need to get bigger, they're going to need to get stronger and all that. I think physically he's going to be up there pretty quickly.
So you touched on it a minute ago with Rico Scott also committed for the 2024 cycle at the wide receiver position. I guess there's still some circumstances that could impact this area between now and signing day, as far as other targets go, and some other things that could come up, right?
Yeah, and I think, like I said earlier, it's not that they, I don't think there's ever a year you don't want to sign wide receivers, right? I think you always want to sign wide receivers, but some years, you've seen Alabama basically sign 9 the last couple of years. Now, one's transferred back to LSU, back home to LSU, and Emmanuel Henderson's still work in progress, but you wanted to get that quality. So if they end up with a third wide receiver, I think it's going to have to be one they just can't turn down, because they've got 2 guys. Rico Scott, I just think a lot of people aren't talking about a guy. He's one of the fastest prospects in his class. And then you add Amari, who also has got some jets and he can run. So they've got 2 guys that they really wanted. Whether or not they pursue a third one remains to be seen. And then, of course, you look at 2025, and you've got Jamie French and Ryan Williams, who, are in the discussion for the top 2 wide receivers in the country for the 2025 class. So if this thing wraps up right now with Jefferson and Scott, I think the Bama staff would call it a win, and take it to the house.
So with Jefferson, baseball still in play at the next level, I would guess, with him too.
He met with the Bama staff on his visit this past weekend, and I think his mind was probably made up before he made his commitment. But the last weekend before the dead period, he visited Tennessee on Friday, and he visited Alabama on Saturday. Now, the one thing that I found, now sometimes circumstances doesn't allow it to happen, but I did find it super interesting that his mom did not go to the visit in Knoxville, and she definitely went to the visit in Tuscaloosa. So I think that was also a sign, coming down the stretch with us making our decisions. But yeah, baseball's still on the table. He talked to the staff, and again, Brayson Hubbard was a guy, committed to a good baseball program as well. So you got to think the Bama staff's kind of thanking Nick Saban at this point for getting a couple of freebies who actually can play in the SEC.
Dylan Lonergan in that same boat.
Oh man, that's 3. That's 3. Yeah, 3 very good baseball players, and not your average. I remember back in the day they were like, Mo Williams a heck of a baseball player, and he probably was, but he's probably good at bowling and badminton and all that stuff in Mississippi. But these guys are baseball players. You see them at the perfect game tournaments, and the offers they have and the places they're committing. I mean, there's no doubt there's some talent for these guys on the diamond.
Amari Jefferson, nearly 1,400 receiving yards as a junior for Baylor a year ago there in Chattanooga. This is a guy with documented production, documented tape, very nice pickup for the Crimson Tide at the wide receiver position. Where are we headed from here, Tim? Big picture wise, how do you like how this class is shaping up?
I know the fans are upset. Some of them, anyways, they feel like it's a slow class. A couple things here. One, we knew it wasn't going to be a particularly large class. I still think it could possibly drift into the 25 range. It also could settle in at 22 and 23. We're expecting a huge year in 2025, and all that stuff factors in. You can't technically sign 25 5 years in a row. I mean, that's 125 guys basically in an eligibility window of 85 people. So you got to pick and choose those battles. I know there's attrition in everything, but some classes are just going to be smaller. But also, I think this class is still a work in progress. I mean, it's hard for me to get too down on a class when the number 1 quarterback in the country is committed. So right out of the gate, you're getting the number 1 quarterback in the country. You're getting a top 5 player in California and Xavier Brown. I mean, obviously you got, Caleb Odom, Jalen Mbakwe. That's just the top end guys. All those guys are top 30 type prospects. So I think it's going to come down to how do they finish? Do they get a big time offensive tackle? We saw that last year. Do they, do they get their safety prospect, Peyton Woodard, who's committed to Georgia? He's still out there looking at Alabama. And also what's going to happen on the defensive line as those dominoes. Defensive line's really weird. I think that's the position affected the most by the NIL because those are the guys, I guess, that everyone's going to choose to fight for. I think it is way more effective on the defensive line than it is at, say, quarterback or wide receiver, some of those skill positions you might think. So I think those defensive linemen dominoes, those edge rusher dominoes will start to fall, and we'll really see what this class is about. But I still think it's going to be a top 5 class. I mean, it might not have the numbers as far as number of players signed, but if you look at the quality, the overall recruit score, Bama's high. I mean, I don't know if they're still number 1, but they're definitely top 3 for the average score overall of each recruit.
Good stuff, as always, Tim, as we talk about the commitment of Amari Jefferson, 4-star wide receiver from Chattanooga, Tennessee, previously committed to the Tennessee Volunteers on the baseball front. Well, he is looking to become a 2-sport guy at the University of Alabama beginning in 2024. Tim, as always, man, appreciate you doing this.
All right. Hope to talk to you soon, Trav.
Yeah, I'm guessing we just might do
it's
that.
Possible.
But
it's possible.
It is.
Never know.
It's possible, I think. But until then, right, hang out with us on the roundtable at BamaOnLine.com. Man, we got so much stuff going on right now at BamaOnLine.com with the start of fall camp, with recruiting nonstop. Never a better time. And we've got 1 month for $1, right? The special right now at BOL. So you want to check that out if
definitely
you haven't
worth
already.
100. We're definitely worth 100 pennies.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
Well, my last contract negotiation, that's what I was told.
That is.
Hey,
I
was
worth
100 pennies.
One of y'all sign up because I've got to pay Travis next year. One of y'all jump on this dollar for a month so I can take care of my guy.
Yeah, you can sponsor me. Yeah, we'll just do that from now on. But that's Tim Watts. I'm Travis Reier. Thank you again for joining us on the Bama Online podcast. Until next time, so long, everybody.